Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. Chad Hyams here, flying solo on this one in season 3. That's right. Can you believe it, audience? Here we are. We're in season 3. And this season, we are focused on the make part of Win, Make, Give. Now, that could mean making more money for you. You know, that's what we're all about. And that's also talking to people who are making a difference, whether it's in the world, in your life, whatever it's going to be. And today I am excited. Yet before I bring today's guest on, I want to make sure that you make the time in your world to check out some of the other podcasts that we have in the Win, Make, Give podcast network. Don't forget to check out Clint Swindoll with Tell Me Something Good, as he brings you a dose of happiness in your life with some amazing lessons in there. We also have Built How for our real estate agents on how to build their business specifically, and the 15-point plan for those of you looking for better health, happiness, and more energy in your world. Here on Win, Make, Give, the parent podcast, Ben, Bob, and I love being able to share with you. And today I want to share with you a friend to the podcast. That's right. We're going to bring on today for you, Trevor Blake. Now, before we have Trevor come on here and introduce himself, you know I'm going to make him. You might hear a little accent. Now, folks, I want you to understand, it's because he has some land up here and lives up in the Washington area. We have a little accent from people in the Washington area. Trevor, welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast.
Thank you, Chad. It must be all the rain. It's
all the rain. Yes, I learned an amazing amount of things about Trevor in the few minutes before we started recording, and we're going to come to some of that maybe as it drops. Yet, Trevor, I don't like to read bios, as our audience knows. They think I'm just lazy. I think that a bio is just boring and sounds flat. Tell our audience who you are, why you're here, and why they should pay attention to this episode.
Well, I'm glad you're not using a standard bio, actually, because those things get written 2 or 3 years before some of these podcasts take place. And they're always out of date anyway. So I'm Trevor G. Blake. I am what people, if they were looking from the outside, would say I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I build and sell companies, basically. I sell them because I get bored quickly. So I take 2 or 3 years to build something and then exit. So I'm on my 7th company now. Actually, I'm running 5, 6, and 7 at the same time. I grew up in poverty in Liverpool and then North Wales, and I was getting bullied, so I hid in the town library and I just started reading, and I ended up reading bunches or hundreds of biographies, and they inspired me to get out of that version of quicksand. And so I've been using those techniques my whole life, and I've had a great adventure, and I'm now, I wouldn't say it's giving back. That sounds too magnanimous. But after I sold my first company, I thought, okay, I've got the credibility to write a book about this. So I wrote a book called 3 Simple Steps, which basically was, if you follow these 3 steps, the same thing can happen for you. That just went on a crazy journey of its own. New York Times bestseller, 6 languages, I think it's in now. And that led to a whole new business. So now I have trevorgblake.com, which is business coaching and personal development transformation, all stemmed out of that 3 simple steps. So now I have a few books, a few courses, and a few companies. So that's basically who I am, really.
I love it. And I guess that's where the accent really came from. Our audience has probably figured that out by now. Let me ask, you said you read a lot of biographies. Yeah. I've never been a biography reader myself. I love the self-help. I love the business. I'm not a biography. What's the biography book that I've got to go pick up, Trevor, and that I should read because I'm doing myself a disservice by not reading this person's bio?
Well, you know I'm going to say 3 Simple Steps because it's part bio. It's sort of semi-bio for me. So do yourself a favor, Chad, and get that. My course is good to cancer research and development, so you wouldn't be buying it for me. But I don't like to recommend specific bios because it depends what you want out of life. I mean, if you want a career and if you want to be like a dream career in music, you'd read music, bios about great conductors or great musicians, et cetera, et cetera. I love business. I read a lot of business bios like Madam C.J. Walker and, everything from Henry Ford to modern sort of magi, from Paulo Coelho to Marie Manuchehri to Trevor Blake to any of the Richard Bransons of the world. So, and the reason I read them is that I find the same patterns of behavior in them all. Doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter their gender, doesn't matter their time in this universe. They all seem to have the same attitudes and processes to change a difficult life of adversity into something spectacular and make a big difference in the world, which is what most of us would like, right? We'd like to be financially independent and make an impact. And so I just use their techniques, and that's what 3 Simple Steps is about. It's about, okay, You don't need to go and have that experience yourself. You can basically, we have these mirror neurons in the front of our brains that allow us to observe and learn without having to do an experience. So that's kind of what it's all about.
All right, well then, let's get to the 3 simple steps, because you've mentioned it a bunch of times. It sounds like a book that I'm already ready to go order. You already said, and I love that you said all the proceeds are going to cancer research.
Correct.
All right, so folks, check out 3 simple steps, because you're doing a good deed just by purchasing the book. You can get it at trevorgblake.com, or I'm sure we can get it on Amazon and all those other places.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
All right. So let's get into this. Give everybody, what are the 3 simple steps? And then let's dive into them a little bit and have some conversation, Trevor.
Well, the first one's about getting back to your individuality. The way we were born when we were little kids, and I used to dream of being an astronaut. Someone might have dreamt of being an actress or something like that. And then life kind of gets in the way, and school kind of suppresses that ambition. And, sometimes parenting suppresses that ambition. And then we get into a regular job, and then it's crushed. and so it's about finding that again, finding that passion again. And the way you have to do it is you really have to control your mentality. So you have to start kind of like reprogramming your brain a little bit, and start to be a little more sensitive to what stuff you're letting inside your brain that's determining your opinion of life. So, if you see a lot of debt commercials on TV, for instance, the thought and concept of debt is in your head the whole time. You want to be aware of how that affects you and shift out of that and start to, change the diet for your brain, if you like. So that's step 1, and it's easy to talk about. It's not so easy to do, because forming new habits take a bit of effort, a bit of discipline.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. I was going to say, that sounds really easy, yet we know it's not. So
no.
Make it a little easier for me. I mean, I can't control what the commercials are on the show I'm watching. I can't control the giant headline that I see on the newspaper when I run into the store and the newspaper is sitting there. I can't control some of that stuff. Give me a tip or 3 on how I can start to control the diet that my brain is taking in.
So it's not about, I'm not, like you say, you love self-help, but I'm not a fan of self-help. And I'm the last person in the world that thought I would ever write a personal development book. But I wrote it because I believe, one of the secrets to entrepreneurial success is not to do what you're good at, but to find something to fix. And you become an entrepreneur by default, if you like. Say, this gets under my skin, this annoys me, I'm going to do something about it. And then, oh, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. And I've done the same thing with 3 simple steps, because I'm not a big fan of self-help that bangs on about positive thinking. Because positive thinking is impossible, because our thoughts happen in 500 milliseconds.
Yes.
And you don't have time to step in front of them, and sometimes you don't want to, if a truck is careering right towards you, you don't want to stand there saying, wow, that's a nice looking truck. You want to get out of the way. So you need to it's okay to have negative thoughts. It's fine. You need them for survival. But what you can do is sometimes you have these negative thoughts and you realize that it's harming you in some way, right? They're not in your best interest. And so the secret is to recognize the thoughts in your head, and don't beat yourself up for having them. Just smile and say, okay, I'll reframe that a little bit. So for instance, let's go to the obvious example of debt. So you get your credit card bill and you think, you put your hands in your head and you go, oh my God, what have I done? How am I going to get out of this? This is a disaster. And then once you know that this process works and that thoughts are little packets of energy, you kind of hear that in your head and you think, hang on a sec, that's not in my best interest. And you reframe it and you imagine yourself being debt-free and going to the liquor store and buying an expensive bottle of champagne for cash and having your friends around and celebrating being debt-free. Okay, so you just reframe this whole experience. And by doing that, you end up having that experience. I know that sounds very new agey, but sure. I've been doing this for a long time. I have thousands of emails from people say, it's funny, when people get debt-free for the first time, they always write in exactly the same way. They always start with wow, and it's always in capital letters. It's like, because when we think about it, most of us haven't been debt free for decades, and sure. and suddenly when you're debt free, it's like a concrete block is lifted off you. It's the first step to financial independence, the first step to success, really. So that's what that kind of mentality control is all about. It's like, okay, you can see a headline in the newspaper when you walk into the store that says, the sky is falling and the economy is crashing. But once you start to focus on that, you realize, hang on a sec, I don't want to think that way. I want to look for more sort of inspiring information. One being, for instance, that recessions are the best time to start a company because there's so much supply available, like we're having now. Really, so many. You're not stuck for a job these days. You can pretty much get a job anywhere. Yeah. So recessions can be pretty good for reinventing yourself.
I think that's a great point that you're making in there, Trevor, and I want our audience to clearly hear that. So Trevor's not telling you you're not going to have the thoughts come into your head. He's just saying acknowledge them and then reframe them, flip them onto the other side of that coin if need be, so that you're not dwelling on that negative thought and you're turning it into some sort of positive image that, yes, sounds very new agey, yet you're right, it works because we know it works. If we can't visualize it in our head, we can never make it really happen. It's just going to be something that's out there. So that's a great point. So you're saying step number one of the 3 simple steps is making sure we control what's going on in our brain and flip those thoughts correctly.
Yeah, mentality control. Because as an entrepreneur, I use it and need it all the time because I'm forever getting rejected. I mean, even investors that have invested in me, reject my next idea. And as a writer, you get rejected, hundreds of times before someone says, okay, we'll publish this book. So you just have to, the secret to that kind of success is not just perseverance, but not letting that affect you, not letting that diminish you in some way or put you down. And so you keep sort of talking to yourself, get yourself back up all the time.
All right, take me to the next step.
So from there, once we have control, it's the question: what do we do with this? It's very freeing. It's a little unnerving actually to realize that you can take control of your life. And so what we do then is we deepen our connection. So I'm a physicist by education, so I'm really into energy and how to interact with energy in a way that's more beneficial to us. So we take our newfound neural pathways that we're not crushing with negative thoughts, and we plug them in. And so the sort of phase 2, step 2 of 3 simple steps is how we deepen our connection to our intuition, because we live in a world now where we don't, in a business sense and in a career sense, the old way of doing things was find a problem, call a meeting, or find an opportunity, hire somebody. We can't do that anymore. We don't have time because everything's spiraling so fast and technology is changing so fast. So now you have to trust yourself for the first time, probably in decades. Men and women have to say, okay, I've got to make the decision, my responsibility. And to do that, you need to have really strong trust in it, in your intuition. So this is, for a lot of people, this is being reborn again. Like, what do you mean? You mean I can say, everyone's saying it's red, but I can say it's blue, and that's okay. So the world of consensus has had to change. So we go into how to deepen that intuition, which is very much connecting with nature. For a lot of people, experiencing some meditative technique for the first time, understanding the power of that and how to use that. That's where I've had all of my great business ideas has always come during or at some point after meditation. And so it's getting people to talk about this and for it not to sound new agey and for it not to sound ethereal in any way, but it's a very practical way to train your brain to think in a certain way that's going to be beneficial. So, here I am, a serial entrepreneur. Most people consider me quite direct and rude, and I'm talking about meditation. It's unusual for most people to hear that.
I like the direct and rude part. I'm okay with that, Trevor. We'll get along quite well. We'll just be direct and rude to each other all day long, knowing that we mean it and coming from a good place. Talk to me about meditation. I mean, we on the 15-point plan podcast, I mentioned it at the beginning. We talk about health, energy, and happiness. We talk about meditation over there. I find that meditation is one of those things that's very challenging for a lot of people to get into because they feel it's too new agey, or they've just got the world pulling at them in some way. Do you do a guided meditation? What does meditation look like to you when you started? Or what does it look to you like now that you've been doing this for a while? So our audience can say, you know what, that's a thing I'm going to add into my world.
Well, so I've been doing this since I was probably a late teenager. And the reason being I read about it in all those biographies. So even though they might, in their time, they didn't call it meditation, but they called it something else. So like, Henry Ford would go to the old farm, rundown farm, and he'd sit in the old rocking chair that was rotting away, and he'd rock in the rocking chair on the veranda, and that's where he'd come up with his great ideas. So when I read that, I thought, that sounds like a good idea. I'll go and do that. And then as I got older, I realized that people give these things labels. Okay, so then they call it meditation, and then they call it transcendental or directive or non-directive, and it just drives you crazy. It drives me crazy. And so I don't know why we have to do that when something is so simple and so easy. So I call it taking quiet time, to take the mystical element out of it. And there's nothing mysterious about taking quiet time. If you can, you get 24 hours, so you've got 72 opportunities to take 20 minutes for yourself. So you should be able to find somewhere in that 72 chances, one chance where you can just sit in a chair in a corner quietly and try not to think too much. And that's it. So that's my version of meditation, right?
You just made meditation like the everyman thing. I mean, that
Well,
was,
it is. It is.
you're right. The term meditation is, I think, what freaks out so many people. That's a great point. If Henry Ford can just sit in a rocking chair that's beat down on a farm that's beat down and just quietly let himself be and then have thoughts come to him, why can't all of us have that special chair that for 20 minutes you just go sit in and zone out and let your brain go wherever it's going to go?
Yeah,
That's a great point.
yeah, and does it matter if you don't get any great ideas? No. So you don't have expectations or anticipation. You just get, for God's sake, don't we deserve it in this crazy world? 20 minutes just to ourselves. Lock the door, make sure the kids can't get in. Maybe don't even tell your partner that you're going to do it. Get up early before anybody else gets up. That's a glorious time of day. But again, you've got to commit to that if you want to do it that way. So that's all it is to me. That, when people want more information, I remind them that, the word meditation is like a group word, like sport. If you just arrived now, Chad, from Mars, and you said, listen, I've heard about sport on Earth. Tell me about sport. Well, I'd give you a technique in soccer because that's all I know, right? But if you went to somebody else, they might give you a technique in indoor bowling. They're completely different, but they're both sports. And so with meditation, there's 1,000 techniques. So you can always find one that suits you. But I'm not that smart. So for me, sitting in the chair for 20 minutes that's all I've ever done, to be honest with you.
So Trevor, on behalf of our audience, because if they're listening, they're wondering the same question I'm wondering right now. Is there such a thing as outdoor bowling?
Yes. Crown green bowling. Yes.
Okay. All right. Because when you say indoor bowling, I didn't know there was ever a thing called outdoor bowling.
No, if you ever have trouble sleeping at night, then try and find outdoor bowling and play that for 20 minutes.
All right. He's giving bonus tips as we go through this here. All right. So you're taking us through the 3 simple steps, folks. It's Trevor's book. You can get your hands on it at trevorgblake.com. Just to give him the plug, we'll have it in the show notes. You can also find it anywhere books are. Trevor, tell us about what's the 3rd step of the 3rd simple step.
So the 3rd is the real magic, and that's where we take our newfound self. We've got our individual back. We've found out how to connect. We've kind of raised our energy a little bit. So what do you do with that? Where do you plug it into? And that section is called intention setting, and it's very different to goal setting. I'm not a fan of goal setting at all.
Okay.
I honestly think it's a lot of nonsense. And because we all do it every day. You look in the fridge, it's empty. You go to the grocery store, you fill it, you've achieved a goal. Okay, so with business, you set a forecast, you never achieve it. I've never achieved a forecast in my life. Or you set a budget, and I've never achieved a budget in my life. And that's kind of, that's the nature of goal setting. But with intentions are going back to that childhood memory again, going back to, can I get from where I am now to where I used to have a dream? I used to dream I was going to be something. I was going to be somebody. I wasn't expecting to be doing this mundane job for the rest of my life. So it gets you back to that point. So intention setting uses a little bit of physics, some quantum physics. It uses quantum entanglement, the observer effect, and string theory, and we put it together. No one needs to know that. I put it together.
I don't have to know these things, right? Because all I've heard about is
I have those ingredients. I put a little recipe together and I put it in a bowl, and you just have to come and eat from the bowl, and that's it.
Okay, got it. Good.
So in step 3, you eat from the bowl and you say, okay, so I'll do it this way. There's a formula called the 5 Ps. I'll do it this way. And that's all you have to do. No expectation. You don't have to believe. You just do it. Do it with great cynicism. That's the best way of doing these things. Be really cynical and sarcastic and say, okay, I'll prove this guy wrong. I'm gonna go to the moon. And then when you're on the moon, remember to email me back and say, hey, I made it to the moon.
That's good Wi-Fi signal if you can send an email from the moon.
So that's what we do, and the emails I get from all over the world are just they're incredible. 2 recent ones: a 13-year-old girl was in the sweatshop. How she got 3 simple steps, I've no idea. But she's now an apprentice ballet dancer with the Royal Ballet in London. That's such a quantum leap.
Wow.
And then I got a really lovely email from a very sarcastic 87, well, now he's 90-year-old man who said somebody gave him 3 simple steps 3 years ago when he was 87, and he was mad about it. First of all, he couldn't get it out of the package. Secondly, when he opened it, he says it's a self-help book. He threw it in the trash can. But it opened up in the trash can, and he just happened to read a couple of sentences, and he thought, oh, he pulled it out, he read it, and it inspired him. He was an ex-professor of economics at North Carolina University, given up on life, lost his wife, lost everybody, so last one alive, if you like. And he says, so I've started a new company at 87 years old.
Wow.
And now he's 90, and he says he's having the time of his life. So these are the kind of quantum leaps you get when you take whatever you've been taught about goal setting and throw it in the trash can, and then go for intentions.
And literally throw it into the trash can in that case. And folks, just remember, if debt-free is the thing you're working towards, which we hopefully have gotten you working towards at Win, Make, Give here, yet if you work, when you send Trevor that email, you have to start it with wow in capital letters. That's how he knows it's a debt-free email coming, it seems. All right. So Trevor, you threw it in there, and I'm not asking you to give me the whole book because I'm going to go order my copy when we get done talking today. Yet I love this stuff. 3 simple steps. And in the third step, there were the 5 Ps. Run them through. What are those 5 Ps?
They're powerful, which means they have to be huge. They're positive, which means instead of being against what you don't want, like let's say that health was an intention, and you'd say, I want to lose 50 pounds or whatever. Well, you're thinking about weight and it's negative, so you've got to be clever about this. So you go for what you would. So you would say, I'm fit, trim, and healthy for my ages, or something like that. The real, like the secret sauce, if you like, is you don't think forward because time's an illusion. So most goal settings will say, I can and I will, I would to, all this kind of stuff. That'll only get your life in frustration. So you imagine it's already happened. So you talk in present tense and past tense. So I do, I have, I did. Like with my companies, when I start a company, I already have my exit. So I will say, I sold this company for at least $100 million, which is what I did for my first company. Started it for $200, sold it for $105.5 million. These aren't little mom and pop companies, by the way. It's $1 billion in enterprise value since 2003. So your powerful, positive, present tense presses got to be private. You cannot share these because they're going to be so big that you wouldn't want to share them because people would laugh at you. So you keep it personal. Don't share it with anybody. That's a tough one for most people to get. And the hardest for anyone to get, the 5th P, is they're personal. It can only be for you. You can't have these intentions for your company. You can't have these intentions for your family, the people you love. It has to be totally selfish. This is for you. And once you put all that together, then you're on a winner.
I love some of the stuff you're saying, Trevor. I'm a big believer in busting myths, breaking the trends that people want to say have to be. And some of the things I'm hearing from you are all those things. I mean, I hear this private thing, right? You want to keep it private because should be so big that people would laugh at you. Meanwhile, how many coaches out there, how many inspirational speakers out there are running around saying, make it as big as possible and tell everybody. And if they laugh at you, that's what you want. If they're not laughing at you, it's not big enough. And here you're saying, no, make it so big you actually won't tell anybody because of the intimidation that could come from telling somebody else and keep it to yourself.
I am, because I've experienced that myself. I mean, in many different ways. I can remember telling my father one of my ambitions and him laughing at me. And that just sucks all the energy out of me because I respect him. I respect my father. One of the people I expect to say, well done, Trevor, good for you for trying, is my dad, right? But no, he sort of laughed at me and said, no, come tone it down a little bit. This is me you're talking to. In business, I get it all the time. Like I'll pump myself up and I've got this brilliant idea and a great business plan, and I'll go into these investors, some of who I know, and I think this is going to be, and of course they're going to love it because I've made them a fortune previously. And I see the smiles on their faces and they say, thank you very much. We'll think about it. And it just crushes you. So you have to get to yourself. So you don't want to put yourself in that position all the time. When I go to investors now, I don't tell them what I'm going to do. I don't tell them that I'm going to build $1 billion company. I just tell them, here's the market number. Here's the size of the industry. Here's the impact I intend to make. And then I close them on, when should we talk about the term sheet, and leave it at that. And, it's that's kind of a really good survival mechanism because when people don't, and sometimes it's out of love, it's not out of maliciousness. So let's say you told your mom and your siblings, I'm flying to the moon. Well, they would say, well, that sounds dangerous. Maybe you shouldn't, because they're going to protect you. They don't want you to make a fool of yourself. So that's why you keep it private, because you don't want to expose yourself to the negative thoughts of others.
I love that. I love that because so many people are saying, no, you should be looking for people. It should be that big. You're right, though. It's going to take a little wind out of your sail, whether you want it to or not. So might as well make it so big, keep it private. And then all of a sudden, surprise the living daylights out of everybody when you say, look what I just did, or just keep taking off of it. I love it. It's been some great information that you're already sharing. We're not done, though. 'Cause early in our podcast, right at the beginning, I think it was in your intro that you gave for yourself, you mentioned that you almost become an entrepreneur by accident. Right. Because the idea isn't go find a business you want to build. The idea is, and I want you to talk about this more, the idea is find a problem you want to fix.
Right. And so look at all the great entrepreneurs. So look at Richard Branson, for instance. Now, he never, ever woke up one morning in his life and said, I'd like to build an airline, please. And, he could barely, he's a dyslexic. He probably couldn't spell airplane. He would admit to that. But he was motivated by love and sex to go and meet this girl on an island in the Caribbean. And he gets to America, and his flight from America, I think Miami to the Caribbean island, gets cancelled. And he's panicking because he thinks this is the day before cell phones. So she's going to think she's jilted. There's lots of other suitors around. He's going to miss out on numerous opportunities at this event. So he's panicking. He goes through the airport. He gets to the end of it, and he sees charter planes signed. So he says, "What's this all about?" And they say, "Oh, you can charter the plane." And they had a plane with 50 seats. So he charters the plane, and then he gets a whiteboard and he goes through the rest of the terminal and he sells seats on the plane he's just chartered. It fills it because that's the only way he could afford it because he didn't have the money. Pays the money like in coins and dollars and all the rest of it, pays the money to the charter airline. They fly to the island, and as he's getting off, someone taps him on the shoulder and says, "Hey, if you improve your service, you've got a pretty decent airline here." And that's when it clicked on, and he thought, you know what? Regional airlines have a place. No one had ever thought. All the big, in those days, it was all like the TWAs and Northwest Airlines. They dominated. They had a monopoly, and they could cancel flights at whim if they weren't full. And so he thought, if we do these little planes, little regional planes, this is a business. So he fixed it. Like another great example would be Netflix. Reed Hastings, who started Netflix, he was a successful entrepreneur before that. So he had his mind set for these things, fixing. His wife sends him to Blockbusters with a video. She forgot to rewind it, and it was expired. It had gone beyond the 2 weeks he was allowed to rent it. And he was humiliated in the line, waiting to return the video, because he got a penalty for not rewinding and a penalty for being late. And everyone behind him was tutting, going, like he's committed a major crime of some description. and so he said, "This is crazy. This should be a different system." So he thought about his gym membership, where you pay a monthly fee, and it doesn't matter whether you go once or not, or 100 times. And so he did that with, in those days, it was with DVDs. I remember joining it way back when, and you paid so much a month, and a DVD came in the mail, and then you watched it and you put it back, another one came, and you could do this every day, or you could, if you forgot, you just went once a month. So he changed that. So he fixed it, and in fixing it, he put Blockbuster out of business in about 4 years. He didn't know streaming was coming. Richard Branson didn't know that all of Europe would move to regional airlines. But that's, you don't know until you get in the business what's going to happen. So I clicked onto that when I was reading their biographies, because when I started my first company, I couldn't figure out what I could do because I'm not very good at anything. I was in sales and marketing, and anyone can do that. And I apologize, no offense to anyone who's in sales and marketing, but honestly, you could train a monkey to do sales and marketing. It's not that high a skill. And I was good at it. It was at a VP level, but it's mostly BS. So I couldn't figure out, what can I do? Well, my wife wouldn't let me near the toolbox because I'm rubbish at that stuff. And that's when it clicked that, you know what? Just start looking for things that irritate you a little bit, that you wish there was a solution for, and you're too lazy to find yourself, and then say, okay, I'll go and fix that. And that's what I've done with all of my companies, all 7 companies. They're all very different in different areas. I'm totally unqualified for all of them, but I'm pretty good at getting a small group of people together. That's, if I have a skill, that's it. And so once I start, I say, okay, I don't know how to fix this, but I'm gonna hire these vendors and consultants, and together they'll figure it out. That's pretty much it.
So you've got a skill of getting people together to work on things. Talk to us about that, because we know that the ultimate path to success is never one where you're on your own. Talk about the power of people. How do we find some of those people maybe in our worlds? What should we be looking for? How do we encourage, support, lead those people, whatever our role? I love that comment there. So tell me more about that, Trevor.
Well, I think it's changed dramatically. So coming from the corporate world, I had to very quickly change my attitude and my style away from supervisory to almost like a conductor of an orchestra, like peer-to-peer, a trust level, because I've never hired an employee. So I've always hired vendors and contractors because I just didn't want to spend time hand-holding employees, which is how I spent most of my regular career. And so I use intuition as my number one guide into who to hire and when to hire. So first of all, I set an intention for the company. I'm smart enough to sit back and think that I don't know how to fix it and I don't know how it's going to work, but life will throw things towards me. And so you bump into people, somebody recommends someone else recommends someone else. And I just use intuition to say, okay, that's the right person. So I never tried to negotiate for the best price. I always try to get the best person, the best vendor. That's so much more important than the best price. And that allows me then to, take all the credit, but sit back and not do much of the work.
Smart. bring on talent, right? If you bring on talent and get the right person, you can win that championship. And obviously it's worked for you again and again as you've sold yourself a few companies along the way. What's a problem you're currently feeling? What's a problem you might not have a hand in yet? What's a challenge that you're looking at and you're saying, you know what, I need to solve that problem next? What's something you're looking at right now, Trevor?
Yeah, well, I'm just into it. I just started a new company, and I really want to this is going to sound very arrogant, but I really want to disrupt Hollywood. And because I'm a writer and I've written some screenplays in the past and I've been ripped off. I've sold them for $20,000 and thought I was a genius, and then found out that they made hundreds of millions. And so I'm building a vertical company for the first time in Hollywood. Typically, Hollywood's very flat hub model, and they piece out everything, and then everyone takes their piece of the distribution rights, and then at the end of it, the writer and the director say, "Okay, where's my bit?" And there's nothing left. And so they might get a nice award on stage, but their bank accounts don't reflect their level in business. So I'm changing that. So I'm changing that whereby we hold everything. So I'm a writer producer now, but so the director gets profit sharing and all the rest of it. So we're taking a different business approach to what, to be honest with you, was not that far short of multi-level marketing, in my opinion. So I've just started that. So this is going to be a fun adventure.
Well, we look forward to seeing how it's going. Trevor, if our audience is sitting there going, I like this guy, obviously I want to read his biography in there. We've told them 3 simple steps how they can get it. How can they follow up with you? How can they send you that email? How do they get in touch with you, Trevor, if they want to learn more about Trevor G. Blake?
Yeah, so just go to trevorgblake.com and everything's there. There's a couple of free downloads, no strings attached. I put them out there during COVID because there was this tsunami of people moving from the corporate office to working from home, with no instruction on how to do that, no support, and I'd been doing that for 15 years. So I know you can easily get burned out at home. You need to do certain things. So there's a free download called The Practical Magic of the 5-Hour Workday. And then there's several free seminars, Secrets to a Successful Startup, and all those, I think. They're all free. So you can go in and enjoy them and get some benefit from them. And then hopefully you'll be inspired enough to say, okay, now I'll buy 3 simple steps. And some money goes to cancer research and development. So everyone win.
All right, Trevor, what's the thing I didn't ask you that you want to make sure our audience still gets as a takeaway from, you've given us plenty of takeaways throughout this, from your 3 simple steps to the 5 Ps to what being an entrepreneur is truly all about. Yeah, what's the thing I didn't ask you, we didn't get into? I know there was a list of things you could have talked about that you really still want to share with the Win, Make, Give audience.
Whichever way you or your audience ask this question, the answer is that, in my opinion, history will show there's never been a better time to reinvent yourself and achieve rapid financial independence. And I mean rapid. I've done it in a few years, and that seems pretty quick for most people, but you can do it in months now. And you're seeing it every week, where someone comes up with an idea and a few months later sells it for 500 million to a big company. There's never been a better opportunity than right now. So to all your listeners, don't let this slip by. Don't let this pass by.
Make it big. Keep it to yourself, folks. You heard it. It was the private as part of the 5 Ps that Trevor went over. You can learn more about Trevor at trevorgblake.com. Of course, you can join us in our Win, Make, Give Facebook group. Just search it, Win, Make, Give. Come in for the conversation. Share your thoughts. Share our conversations as we continue them after the episodes drop. Make sure you go back and check out Season 1, Season 2, as we're now in Season 3 of Win, Make, Give. And until our next episode, as always, do good.